On the open grasslands of East Africa, the cheetah does not chase every gazelle it sees. It watches. It waits. It reads the terrain with the patient precision of an animal that understands something most predators never learn, that the cost of a failed chase is not just energy. It is time. When it finally commits to the pursuit, it does not run in a straight line. It reads the gazelle's movement pattern, anticipates the next direction shift, and cuts the angle, not chasing where the prey is, but positioning itself for where the prey will be. The cheetah does not outmuscle the gazelle. It outthinks the terrain. And the distance between those two strategies is the difference between an animal that eats and an animal that exhausts itself in pursuit of something it was never designed to catch by force alone. In Memphis, Tennessee, on a Thursday morning in March, a 33-year-old logistics coordinator named James sits in his car in the parking lot of his workplace for 11 minutes before going inside. His phone is open to a debt repayment calculator he downloaded 6 weeks ago. He has entered the numbers 3 times already: his credit card balance, the interest rate, the minimum payment, the medical bill from 2 years ago, the personal loan he took when his hours were cut. The calculator produces the same number each time. 14 years. He looks at it. He puts his phone in his pocket. He goes inside. The question this investigation asks is not whether James knows he has a debt problem. He knows. The question is what was installed in the financial architecture of his life, neurologically, evolutionarily, and environmentally, that keeps him returning to that parking lot with the same numbers and the same outcome every few weeks for 2 years. Before we go further, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you are new here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming behavioral investigations. The standard personal finance answer to James's situation arrives in 4 words: make more, spend less. James knows both halves with the same clarity he knows his own name. He has searched it, watched it, internalized it, and returned to the parking lot calculator with the same number every time. The investigation is not about the answer James already knows. It is about the behavioral architecture that exists between knowing the answer and living it, the specific neurological, evolutionary, and environmental design that keeps the gap between knowledge and action not just open but widening. Because debt at the psychological level James is experiencing, it does not sit still and wait to be addressed. It moves. It adjusts. And understanding how it moves is the beginning of understanding how to cut the angle rather than chase the straight line. The cheetah watching from the grass does not see a prey animal. It sees a pattern. And the pattern, not the prey, determines the outcome. Memphis sits at the intersection of economic realities that produce a specific kind of financial habitat. The city's median household income places it consistently in the lower third of major American cities. Its cost of living produces a pressure less visible than high-cost city pressure, but equally structuring. The pressure of a margin that looks adequate from the outside and feels perpetually insufficient from the inside. The logistics sector that employs a significant portion of Memphis's working population operates on shift structures, creating monthly income variability, hours that fluctuate, overtime that arrives unpredictably. This is not poverty. This is the financial habitat of the consistently almost enough, where the gap between income and stability is never quite closable by the behavioral strategies the income level produces. James grew up in North Memphis in a household that understood debt the way most working-class American households understand it, as a fact of adult life that arrives with the first major expense and never fully leaves. His mother carried credit card balances across his entire childhood. Not irresponsibly. She used them for the moments the month ran short, paid the minimum when the full balance was unavailable, and treated the interest as the cost of getting through. The household money code James absorbed was not poor decision-making. It was a precise adaptation to an income environment that did not consistently produce the margin required to behave differently. By the time James had his own income and his own accounts, the behavioral code was already running. Debt was not a crisis. Debt was the water. And you do not panic about water when you have always lived in water. At 33, James earns $44,000 annually. His debt, 3 credit cards, 1 medical bill, 1 personal loan, totals just over $22,000. His minimum payments consume $460 of his monthly take-home. He is not spending recklessly. He is in the specific financial condition the calculator describes, a system where the interest rate grows the balance faster than the minimum payment reduces it, and where the behavioral architecture of the habitat produces minimum payment behavior as its most neurologically available output every single month. James is in full survival mode, managing the creepers, minimum payment thinking on high-interest debt, the threat that approaches quietly and holds the player at spawn point indefinitely, while the mine entrance remains unreachable. On a Friday evening in early April, James receives a tax refund, $1,140, the largest single resource arrival in his financial life in 14 months. He opens the calculator and identifies the smallest balance, a credit card at $940, 22% interest. Paying it in full and redirecting the minimum payment would reduce his repayment timeline by 2 years and 4 months. James looks at this for 3 minutes. Then his car needs an oil change. His refrigerator is making a new sound. His daughter's school supplies for next semester are $90. His sister's wedding is in July, and he has not contributed to the shared family gift. Each is real. None is fabricated. All arrive in the 36 hours following the refund with the psychological weight of things that have been waiting for exactly this resource. By Sunday evening, the $1,100 has been mentally allocated across 7 directions. The credit card remains at $940. Return to the grassland. The cheetah has selected its target, a gazelle near the edge of the tree line. Its behavioral system runs a calculation faster than conscious deliberation. Not whether to chase. It committed when it selected the target. What it calculates now is the angle, the trajectory that meets the prey at the point of lowest resistance. The cheetah's top speed is extraordinary, but its stamina at that speed lasts approximately 30 seconds. The entire behavioral architecture, the waiting, the watching, the angle calculation, exists to compress the chase into that window. The behavior before the sprint is not hesitation. It is the mechanism by which the sprint succeeds. What James experienced across that Friday to Sunday window is what behavioral finance researchers call present bias, what a naturalist would identify as near-horizon fixation, what anyone who has watched their resource supply disappear before it could be directed would recognize as surface farming. The trigger arrived, the refund, stage 1 of the respawn loop. The emotional calculation ran instantly beneath deliberate thought, stage 2. The amygdala processing 11 real competing pressures against a debt plan whose payoff arrives in 2 years, a timeline the limbic system evaluates as approximately equivalent to never. Stage 3, the behavioral justification display, the strategic reframe, arrived with complete coherence. The oil change is real. The refrigerator is real. The wedding gift is real. The rationale is not a lie. It is the story the neurological outcome tells about itself after the outcome has been determined. Stage 4, the allocations made, the brief relief. Stage 5, the quiet reset. The calculator still on the phone. The debt unchanged. The pattern complete. The cheetah does not escape its constraint by running faster. The escape happens through the angle. The neurological architecture running James's debt pattern was formed decades before his first credit card. The amygdala processes financial pressure with the same ancient circuitry it uses for physical danger. When James sees $1,100 and 7 competing demands, the amygdala does not see a planning opportunity. It sees a resource arrival in a threat environment and distributes the resource across immediate threats, reduce current danger exposure, survive the present moment. The prefrontal cortex, capable of 2-year financial projection, is available, but it does not move at amygdala speed. And in a habitat where competing demands are real and the margin consistently narrow, the amygdala runs first and fastest with an authority prefrontal deliberation almost never overrides in real time. The brain's survival architecture is functioning exactly as designed. The problem is that it was designed for a world where the threat that consumes the resource and the threat that needs eliminating long-term are the same threat. In a modern debt environment, they are not. James's debt pattern is not the product of financial ignorance. It is the product of a survival architecture doing exactly what survival architectures do. The habitat reinforcement loop completes the picture. Minimum payment behavior is the structural norm in James's financial ecosystem, not because the people around him make poor decisions, but because his income and expense environment produces it as the most rational available response. Nobody announces a paid-off credit card the way they announce a new car. The household code, debt as water, minimums as the cost of getting through, continues running in James's financial nervous system decades after the household that installed it dispersed. The vein this investigation has uncovered is this. James is not failing to manage his debt. He is succeeding at managing his survival. Those are not the same behavior. Before examining your own debt behavior, examine the threat environment your brain navigates when making debt decisions. Is your brain managing survival or managing escape? What the behavioral evidence reveals is a four-stage pattern that WealthWild calls the escape velocity system, the angle calculation loop, the creative mode break. Stage 1 is the resource arrival assessment, the terrain reading pause, the inventory scan. A resource arrives. The brain maps it against every visible competing demand before the prefrontal cortex is consulted. Stage 2 is the immediate threat allocation, the near-horizon distribution, the creeper management response. The resource distributes across threats the amygdala assessed as most immediately consequential, rational within the survival frame, but unable to alter long-term trajectory. Stage 3 is the survival justification display, the habitat explanation pattern, the strategic reframe. The reasons arrive after the allocation. Each reason is true. None is the cause. Stage 4 is the reset and rearm, the patrol return, the respawn at spawn point. The pattern completes. The debt unchanged. The inventory resets. The escape velocity system does not break through discipline. The cheetah escapes its constraint not through effort, but through the angle, the single positional decision made before the resource arrives and the threat inventory runs. On the grassland this morning, the cheetah watches a different section of terrain, the same hunting ground from a position that puts the morning sun at its back. Nothing dramatic has changed. The same savanna, the same constraint, but the position is different, and the position determines the outcome. On a Wednesday evening 3 weeks after the parking lot session, James sets up an automatic transfer, $47, recurring every other Friday when his paycheck clears, directed to the smallest credit card balance before the threat inventory runs. $47 is below the threshold of the resource guarding instinct. It does not trigger the competing demands assessment. It moves before the survival architecture activates. James has not changed his discipline. He has changed his position. The behavioral truth this investigation has been building toward is this. Debt does not respond to the same behavioral architecture that created it. Survival mode cannot generate escape velocity because survival mode was designed to maintain position, not change trajectory. The exit requires one positional shift made before the survival architecture activates. A decision about the angle before the chase begins, not during it. The cheetah does not decide how to run during the sprint. It decides where to start before the sprint begins. 2 questions to carry from this investigation. When a resource arrives in your financial life, what is the first thing your brain maps it against? And how many seconds pass before deliberate thought begins? And is your financial life designed to give your prefrontal cortex a decision to execute before your amygdala runs its threat inventory? The resource guarding instinct, the near-horizon fixation, the surface farming response, is not your enemy. It kept your ancestors alive. The investigation is asking whether you are still in the terrain that required it. If this investigation has shown you something true about the angle your financial life is approaching from, say so in the comments. The honest answer, not the polished one. That is the conversation WealthWild was built for. And if you are not yet part of this behavioral investigation, the subscribe button is not a content subscription. It is an invitation to keep going to diamond level.